Hi, and welcome back to Just Ask the Question. I am your host, Brian Karem. With me today, it's a joy, it's a pleasure. Have with us a Democratic candidate for Congress from the 2nd District of Missouri, podcaster, former aviator. Fred, I do appreciate you being here. One of the things I wanted to talk to you about, as you know, former member of the military, I want to start out talking about not your candidacy, but we'll get to that. But more
No worries.
importantly, the war in Iran. Now, the way I've been looking at it is we're 5 months into a war we were told would be over in 4 weeks, that the president declared he won within 2 days over a missile system that he said he obliterated a year ago. And then two more servicemen died in Jordan in the last 2 days. And then Trump was on the air doing an interview with Trey Yingst from Fox News and said that he wouldn't rule out a ground campaign, but said that we have other people to do, that will do that for us. Sounding a little bit like LBJ in 65 when he said, I'm not going to send American boys to do what Asian boys should be doing, except Donald Trump makes it sound like, the Trumpian twist is just sounds like we're going to pay off mercenaries, which would be the Israelis. But yeah, I mean, where do you sit on this as a vet?
Oh, first of all, obviously, I mourn the loss of our soldiers, which is now 16 lost lives, hundreds of injuries that we actually don't know the full count of because this Pentagon has decided to stop reporting that. So we literally don't even know the casualty count, which is, I was both an aviator and a public affairs officer when I served in the military. And one of our hard and fast rules in the military was maximum information, minimum delay, because, we are leading the American sons and daughters. And we have a duty to inform the Americans of what we're doing with them. This Pentagon feels they don't at all, and so we have no idea how many of our service members have been injured. We have no idea what the mission is. We have these most ludicrous things where the War Powers Act keeps getting a reset, and I don't remember the War Powers Act having a reset button where, oh, it's a pause or a ceasefire is a pause. So we get to restart the clock. The War Powers Act was never meant to be a 60-day conduct a war for free coupon. And Trump seems to feel he's got an unlimited coupon. He can just reset his coupon every day. So it is an outrageous, illegal war. It is led by buffoons. It is getting our sons and daughters killed. And we don't know what the mission is. We don't know what the end state is. I have never seen such a ludicrous, embarrassing operation in my life. I shudder saying this is the worst thing I've ever seen in history because history is long in this country. But I'm not actually sure we've ever had a war so poorly executed at the strategic level by the political leadership of the United States as this one. And that's to say, like you mentioned, LBJ. I mean, literally, who is going to invade Iran? We went into Iraq. I invaded Iraq twice, for God's sake. I did Desert Storm. I did Iraq 1. I joke about it.
I was there.
Yeah, exactly. You're there for both. And we had a lot of people, a ton of people, and not just Americans. We couldn't have invaded Iraq in 2003 without our British allies, without other allies that joined us later. We simply do not have the forces. Our military isn't as big as it was then. So I don't know who he's talking about. And then on top of that, they've stretched our military thin with a year and a half of border deployments, a year and a half of deployments to Washington, D.C. and other cities, absolutely draining the military bank accounts to the tune of outrageous numbers, but also draining the military their ability to conduct warfare at this point. So what I'm seeing is horrifying to me, both as a civilian, a taxpayer, as a potential congressman, and as a veteran. And so I honestly to God at this point don't even know what they're trying to accomplish. When they
I don't
say
think they
things
know.
like, right. And then the outrage to me especially is the buffoonish nature of the leadership, where we're in the middle of a war, we're losing service members, and Pete Hegseth is in his office in the Pentagon doing 2 camera shoots with makeup and lighting about testosterone levels, about the chaplain corps. He is not even interested in running the war he started effectively. Why is he not in the Middle East coordinating with our allies? Why is he not visiting the troops? Because I'll tell you why, it's too dangerous. And
Well,
it
he
is
doesn't know what he's
outrageous.
doing either.
Doesn't know what he's doing. Yeah, look, he's a major. I don't know if you know, but I'm sure you do, Brian, because you got connections to the Pentagon. Everybody calls him the major. And for those who haven't served, that's really a smear. I mean,
Yeah.
I was a major. Look, major rank. Major rank is a mid-grade officer, maybe 13 years in the military or less, and they're they have no actual power,
Right.
but they think they're God. It's the first field grade rank. So to call him the major is really a smear, and that's the point. He's never
I would
served at a
like to call
strategic
him
level.
second lieutenant, but we
Yeah,
won't
because
go
well,
there.
he's frozen at that level. The
Yeah.
concerns about health, the concerns about beards, the concerns about troop fitness. I mean, this is squad level stuff. He is reaching down the chain of command, and he's undermining discipline with these, like letting these guys with the pilot misbehavior get off. It's just what I could talk for hours about the incompetence and malignant narcissism that is Pete Hegseth and what he's doing to troops. But the problem is, I have trouble joking about it because it's just so dangerous. Look, it's not funny. Our men and women are dying. Why did those two troops die in Jordan?
Well,
Jordan's a long way from Iran.
yeah,
Why were they not already in shelters? Were they not warned about the missiles incoming? How come they weren't locked down already? I mean, I have so many questions. And when you start, Brian, when you
yeah.
start pulling the thread never ends.
No,
And
it
it
does.
does always end at death. And that death is our troops. And
Well,
it is a very, very dangerous thing they're
one
doing.
thing I wanted to talk about, because you said maximum information, minimum delay when you were
Mm-hmm.
in PI or a PIO member. All right,
Yeah.
how do I know that? I want to have some faith in some of the numbers, but how do we know that it's just 16 that have died? How do we know
Yeah. I
that?
mean, even
Because we
I,
don't know how many
use,
are injured. If they're
I
not
actually
coming out
don't
with the
know.
injured, what makes you think they're coming out with the dead?
I I don't, and that's terrifying to me. We haven't seen dignified transfer since the first one. Um, I don't know. Yeah, again, I don't trust any information coming out of this government anymore. Any information of any part of the government, certainly not the Pentagon. And the way they've been openly attacking your colleagues in the media, the way they've been openly trying to limit information, is absolutely horrifying to me. This is a democracy. This is a constitutional republic. I don't freaking care what you call it. But the fact is, we have a government of the people for the people, and therefore they must inform the people, and we are the people. And I'm horrified by the lack of information and the dangerousness that is this. Again, this is never meant to be. Now let's circle back to what I'm doing in my side job. I'm running for Congress. Where is Congress? Where is the Congress doing? They didn't even hold a hearing for the first 60 days,
No.
and now they haven't held another hearing since. And they're asking for a blank check. And Congress, these people who love the troops. Look, if you love the troops, you should care about whether or not they're being killed in an unnecessary war. You should be worried why the Pentagon is allowing them to be sitting in unguarded bunkers. I mean, my God, we've been fighting a war in Ukraine for 4 years. 3 years of that war have included drones
12.
from Iran,
Yeah.
right? Well, yeah, 12. I'm just
They've
talking the
been
last
fighting for
three. The
12.
current version, the
Yeah.
current version of the Ukraine war, which I call the drone war. This drone war has been going on for 3 years using Iranian drones, the same drones they shot at our guys in Kuwait at the port. How are we not hardened for drones? They literally hardened it for car bombs, but they didn't harden it for drones. I mean, what are we doing?
Well,
It's absolute
Fred,
insanity.
I see drones being used for delivery in the United States. And how, don't get me started. If you're not hardened for drones there, how vulnerable are we here?
Just ask Ukraine; they know. And ask the Russians; they're finding out now too. And so I'm troubled that after this much wartime, we haven't learned the lessons. I'm troubled by the people he's promoting who apparently didn't learn the lessons either as generals. I'm very troubled by the way he's reaching into the chain of command, firing people who are promoted, blocking promotions of POC and women. I mean, on and on. This is the most dangerous Secretary of Defense and leadership, civilian leadership of the Pentagon I've ever seen in my life. And I'm 60.
What are your people that you know in the Pentagon and your sources there tell you?
They're miserable. And frankly, a lot of my sources dried up because they're scared to death of being busted, with the hunts for, the hunts for leakers and tests. It is a horrifying situation that our service members are afraid for even telling the truth themselves. Um, this is, I don't say it lightly. This is the most dangerous minute I've ever seen.
What
And
is
these are
the
very dangerous people.
Okay, so I agree with that. So and before we get full on into your race, when you talk about dangerous, I have said that I believe that Donald Trump is not only a narcissist and a sociopath, but maybe a suicidal one, because he gets into an Air Force One that he knows isn't protected, and he looks at a reporter and says, "They'll get me first, but you'll go with me." It's a hell of a recruiting tool for people who want to cover the president, join the president, and maybe die. So I don't want to be in the travel pool, but I'm how dangerous do you, because I think it's I honest to God, and I know for people who hear this, it may sound like an overstatement, but I honestly, based on what I've seen in the last 15 months, I could see Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump, having a giggle fest for the translation, a circle jerk, together and talk about the end of the world and pushing the button. I
Yeah,
could see them justifying it.
I would have called that ludicrous a year ago, but right now I just don't even know. I mean, honestly, I mean, he is this tit for tat. Like, well, we have to hit them back because they killed our people. Great, then
How long
it's
does
just
that
it's
last?
right. It's never ending war. These threats of I mean, he is so impulsive now. He is so out of control, and he has no guardrails. There's no checks and balances. And when you include the fact that Pete Hegseth is a clear a Christian nationalist, hung cow at the Navy is a lunatic and a Christian nationalist. You've created a chain of command. They're promoting generals that are Christian nationalists, and Christian nationalists. Part of their line of reasoning is the apocalypse and bringing it on, and
Yes.
freeing Jerusalem. There's an apocalyptic version of the Christian nationalist string that should scare people when they're in power like this. And again, I look to the checks and balances that are vaunted checks and balances, which are so not even being tried, not even being executed
Well,
in any
Congress
way.
has fallen down on the
Congress
track
has Congress has
completely.
walked away from their duty, and I don't want to fault the Democrats who are trying their best, I suppose, but I think they're trying enough, and I certainly don't think the Republicans are doing a thing, and the lackadaisical nature. Right. They're kissing his ass. They're ignoring blatant law violations. They're ignoring blatant corruption to that's before we even pull the string of the fact that his sons are investing in defense companies that are getting contracts. I mean, it's never ending. The fact that our negotiator, Jared Kushner, is a private citizen with
Yes.
financial interest in the war itself, tied directly to the Prime Minister of Israel and the MBS. Every time you flip another rock, there's more worms, and they're never-ending worms. And our Congress is just chilling. It is an apocalyptic moment that is being ignored,
Potentially
and
apocalyptic, and it
it
bothers
is
me.
it is yeah, it
I mean,
bothers a
I have
lot of people.
grandchildren, and I look at it and it goes, "There's going to be a world here for you in 2 years." I
It's
firmly I wrote a column this week for Salon. I just came out and said it, and I'll say it here. I don't think this war ends as long as Donald Trump is president.
I think that's fair. I don't see an end to it. He will never negotiate in good faith. I don't know how we're going to do anything. I don't know how we're going to negotiate with anybody as long as Donald Trump is president. No one can trust him. He holds no faith in agreements. He doesn't believe in anything that's written down. He changes his mind at a whim. He's insane. I mean, the easy joke this week is when we had forest fires, Canada sent firefighters. When Canada has forest fires, he sent tariffs. I
Yeah.
mean, the man is untrustworthy. He's immoral. He's unstable, and he's growing more so every check. And at least we had a couple adults in the room in Trump 1.0. Trump 2.0 is people who are more lunatics than he is. And I don't say that lightly. Pete Hegseth is a very, very dangerous man. He looks clean and he looks like a cool dude, but he is a
No,
dangerously unstable
he
man.
doesn't look like a cool dude to me. He looks like one
Yeah.
of those bros in high school that
Hmm.
thought he was bigger than he was, who always
Yeah.
got picked last for kickball and never
Doing his
had
little
an ace for
push-ups.
senior prom. Couldn't do but three push-ups, couldn't
Yeah.
do a pull-up, but he thinks
Yeah.
and he's out there saying, I'm going to juice my soldiers with steel.
Masculinity, the
What?
obsession with masculinity. I'm not going to get into discussions of those
Wait
things,
to go
but
there.
the obsession. I know the obsession. Well, I am running for Congress. The obsession with the masculinity, the obsession with low T. I mean,
Yeah.
and it's just, what are we doing?
Projecting much?
It's just insanity. It is. We're so far off the freaking reservation at this point that there's no getting back to it. We're so far off normal. There's no getting back to it. And every time I look to Congress to just try and reel us back into normal, I'm just baffled by their lack of interest in doing so.
Well,
And again, it wouldn't bother me as much if we were talking light stuff, but we're talking life and death.
we're talking
Soldiers are dying.
this is
Iranians are
existential
dying. Yeah,
shit,
we're
right?
conducting war crimes. We are look. There's no way to shade it. We are conducting war crimes in the oceans of South America right now.
Yeah.
Those are war crimes. There's an admiral signing off on war crimes. War crimes worse than we did in Vietnam. We don't know who's in those boats. We have no idea who's in those boats. They're lying. They say they know who's in those boats. We're killing people.
We don't
for
know
driving a
who's in
boat.
the boats or what's in the boats that
No,
they could be
a
fishermen out on
known
the weekend.
trafficking route. A known trafficking route. Well, maybe it's also a known marlin route. Maybe it's a
Yes.
known tuna route. I don't know, but I do know we're blowing people up and then double tapping them sometimes. These are war crimes. People ask me a lot about the things happening in the Middle East. In other words, look, I'm not a sociologist. I'm not a professional in a lot of things, but I am a West Point graduate and an Army officer for 22 years. And I was schooled relentlessly on the laws of war. I was schooled relentlessly on the Geneva Conventions. And what I'm witnessing in real time are war crimes by every definition of it. And to see my own government, the military that I love, the military that I've got kids serving in, conduct war crimes should outrage every single American. And the blasé nature, the way people dismiss it as no big whoop, is just as terrifying as the fact that we're doing these war crimes. And I'm calling on Congress to get off their asses and give a damn about America's future when we as a nation are conducting war crimes and no one cares. And history is judging us. And I'm actually more worried about current reality is judging us. We're going to
Yes.
lose all of our. It's going to take us decades to have the trust
To
for our allies.
rebuild. It will take, not in our lifetime will we have what we had prior to Trump as
I
far
shake.
as
I
international
yeah,
goodwill.
yeah,
Well, look, I
yeah.
want to
Well,
take
I didn't like her laugh. I mean, I didn't like her laugh.
there's a lot I don't like about Trump, and we can go into that and spend 3 hours. But I'm going to take a short break, and when we come back, I want to talk about your run for Congress. You've talked a lot about Congress. Let's get into that. We'll be right back. Hi, we are back. It is Just Ask the Question, and I am your host, Brian Karem. With me, Fred Wellman, candidate for, second Congressional District in
Second Congressional
Missouri.
District, Missouri, beautiful
So
Missouri.
and that's what I want to talk a little bit about, because you alluded to the problems in Congress. Let's talk about that. I also find, and look, this is just me, you don't take offense to it, but after 40 years of covering politics, the Republicans are reprehensible right now, but I don't think the Democrats are doing much better. It seems to me like it's one party has no heart, one has no head. And the Democrats, who are supposed to be the big tent party, are busy fighting with each other over who's left, who's right, who's center, should we keep them, shouldn't. And meanwhile, the Republicans are, as Thomas Massey said, why do you want to investigate voter suppression and saying that it's one party rule? We won all the races.
Right. Yep.
So, except for the
Yeah.
one that Donnie wants. But so when your run for Congress, first of all, how is it going? How do you feel about the race?
Oh, it's going great. Yeah, and honestly, it's when you run, a lot of folks, my opponent Ann Wagner's been in Congress 13 years. She's won, obviously every time, and there's been varying degrees of that. But I was sitting here last spring and I watched that big billionaire bill pass, and I told the story in the campaign trail a lot. I call it the split screen moment, and the split screen moment for me was seeing senators on TV and congressmen on TV talk about these 27-year-old men who are laying around their couches, getting free healthcare, playing video games, and then stripping healthcare, stripping food benefits. 21,000 of my constituents have lost their healthcare. At the same time, the split screen was Jeff Bezos' $56 million wedding in Venice that last weekend of June. And so while the billionaires and the celebrities and the B-list and D-list celebrities were waving at us from Venice, partying, our own members of Congress were smearing the very people they're supposed to represent. And I woke up angry. I said, we deserve better. So I could do this, what you and I are doing here, talking to a camera, or I could do more. And as I started looking at the race, I realized that Ann Wagner is very vulnerable. She hasn't had a lot of competitions. Good people ran, but they didn't raise enough money. They didn't build a professional campaign. They didn't get support from our unions locally. They didn't build a coalition to take back a seat like this. And the demographics are changing this district. The fastest growing population in my district is South Asian. It's Indian and Pakistani immigrants. It's Muslim immigrants from Yemen. So we've got a very diverse district that people don't realize is that diverse. We've just never had somebody run with a goal of uniting all those coalitions. So you talk about the infighting. I made a conscious decision from the beginning of this race that I'm running as a Missouri Democrat. And what I mean by that is I'm running for the people of Missouri too.
I know what that
means.
There's
750, you've been to Missouri. Yeah. There's 750,000 people in my district and they deserve representation.
Show me, baby.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Show me. And people talk about that a lot, but it's such a great analogy. It's
I love it.
And that came from Congressman Van Diver in the 1800s. He gave a speech. Your flowery language and prose doesn't impress me. I'm from Missouri. you have to show me. And so I joke a lot that I will never settle for trust me, bro policies. And if you go back to what we were just talking about, trust me, bro, that's
Trust
what they're
me, bro.
saying. Like,
Here for you.
trust me,
Are
bro,
you the
and
best?
that's,
I do the best
yeah,
stuff.
exactly. That's the same way, right? We were just talking about the war. Like, trust me, bro. It's going great. No, I don't trust you. AI, trust me, bro. It's going to be great. I don't trust you. I want
No.
to see numbers. I want to see plans. And so when I ran, I promised my people in my district, my folks, that I would run for them. I'm not running for Mr. Jeffries. I'm not running for Mr. Schumer. I'm not running for the DCCC, who hasn't shown up in my race yet. I'm not running for the DNC, certainly not them. I'm running for the people of Missouri who deserve fair representation that cares about their daily
Have you
lived
done
lives.
internal polling?
Yes. Oh,
And what's
yeah.
it show
Came
you?
out great. On the generic question, hey, who would you vote for today? We're in the margin of error. Miss Wagner's winning. Representative Wagner's winning 44-41. But when we read our bios, to include the hits on me, I lost it all twice in my life. Okay. I got mobilized on 9/11. I lost my business during the pandemic. Even with that in there, it switches to 48-41, me winning by 7 points. We win independence. We win rural voters even.
Well,
People are so hungry for change here.
yeah,
And
they
so
are.
we have a path to victory.
Let me go over that because I find the second district of Missouri kind of and I don't want to overstate it, but you have a district that includes farms, uh,
Yep.
urban. It is
Yep.
to me, it looks like a representation of all of America. Big
That's
city,
it. That's it.
big
Yep.
city, little farms, little towns, all of it, and all of them suffering the unique problems that we are suffering in the United States across one congressional district. And I mean,
You were
you don't
nailing it.
have Herman in there, but you're
No, we
close to
do. We do
Herman.
now. We do. No, we have
Herman,
Herman now.
I'll
Yeah, they
get another for the
redistricted.
wine fast, baby.
Yeah, yeah. I got Herman. Dude, they tried to redistrict to save Ann, and they cut out two counties, Warren and St. Charles, above the Missouri River. They added all of Franklin, Gasconade, and then down Washington, Crawford, and Jefferson County. I love it. That's where I hike. That's the St. Francis Mountains.
Yeah,
That's
I
even
know
more.
that.
It's Herman. These are Missourians. I call them small C conservatives. These are Missourians who trace their families back to the 1800 wagon trains that came out here. These are Missourians who are salt of the earth. And what's fascinating, maybe, Brian, is as I started talking to people on the campaign, even before I ran, like, for example, I called my friend Mark Boyko. He represents my hometown of Kirkwood, where I grew up. And I said, Mark, he's the state house. And I said, Mark, when you do doors, what do you hear from your constituents? And he said, Fred, consistently, the number one answer is, Mark, my kids can't afford to live in Kirkwood. And I said, that's fast because it's like Mayberry. I think, oh,
Yeah.
that's interesting. But here's where it gets interesting, Brian. When I talked to my neighbor in my nice neighborhood who's got a kid at Columbia, he said, Fred, I'm worried about my kids because he's going to graduate Columbia and I'm not sure he's going to have a job. And when I go to Pacific, Missouri, out in Franklin County, I hear, Fred, I'm worried about my kids because there's no jobs here. I go, consistently across every demographic, be it my Bosnian friends in South County to my rural friends in Washington County. All I hear is of people that look like you and me is I'm worried about my kids' futures, and the kids are worried about their futures. I went to Mizzou, your school, and the Mizzou
Woohoo!
student. Yep, I
I
went to
see.
this great journalism school. My sister, we're so Mizzou at my house. My brother's married professors' daughters, and so we went to Mizzou to have a town hall with the student Democrats, and I was Brian, I was ready to talk about the war. I was ready to talk about Israel, Gaza. I was ready to talk about our LGBTQ community. Do you know what those kids asked? Not one student asked about anything but the economy.
Yeah.
They asked about jobs. They asked about the AI revolution. They asked
Remember
about, they're
James
worried.
Carville? It's all about the economy, stupid.
I used to mock that. God bless James Carville, but I've never seen a moment in time where it's so much more than the economy. It is such the affordability crisis is what we use the term for, but it's
Yeah.
so much bigger than that. Did you see this month they reported that for the first time in American history, minimum wage will no longer get you an average apartment in any state of the union? Okay, just think
Fred,
about that. Like you can't, you cannot live
I'll
anymore in
give
our
you one.
economy.
My son lives in Waco, Texas. We went to visit him. He had a problem with his refrigerator. He has American Home Shield or whatever, one of those insurance
Yep,
things.
I know him
So
well.
they so he brings in the guy who's going to fix his refrigerator. The guy's sitting there and he makes a phone call and he goes, "Isn't this how you should fix it?" He goes, "Yeah, but I got to talk to my manager." And my son goes, "Wow, you got to talk to your manager?" He goes, "It's worse. My manager is AI." The manage, yeah, his manager is he goes, "I'm thinking of quitting this job, starting my own repair business because people want to deal with people.
Right.
But
That
to,
bubble's about to burst. I mean, that
I
bubble.
think it's frightening in a number of respects, but I want to get back to the idea of your district being, kind of representative of America. One of the
It is.
things that you find with the Democrats sometimes is they're trying to force a message down your throat, preach to you about why we're right. And I get it. Most of the time I agree. But the one way I found that the Republicans were successful, at least Donald Trump, because he is a grifter, he asked people what they wanted. They told him, and he said, "Yeah, I'll address that need." Now he never did, right?
No,
He
no.
used what people wanted to get what he wanted, and there were people that believed him. But that open, like you said, you've gone around. What are people saying in your district, man? That is, I've got to tell you, in covering politics for 40 years, that's refreshing. The guy that did that I remember, who won the House back for the Democrats, was Tip O'Neill. And when Tip was assigned, as a junior congressman to go out and get people to run for office, he said, I didn't go in there and ask who was, far left or who was my Democrat. I walked into the district. I said, who's the most popular guy in the district? We'll
Yeah.
get behind him. And as long
Yep.
as you agree with some of the tenets of the Democratic Party, we'll
Yep.
work with you for, the big tent. So
That's it. That's it.
so the question is, how do you deal with some of the issues that conservatives and rural Democrats don't want to deal with, like the preach, transgender
Hmm.
for everyone drives me
Hmm.
completely nuts because it's bullshit. So how do you deal with that? How do you deal with the fact that you? It's almost like people in some rural towns can't believe you'd be a Democrat and be, and own a gun.
Or a veteran. A
or,
veteran. You
or,
should
or a
see.
veteran.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the joke in our campaign is that I code MAGA. I joke, Brian, that if I wear a polo shirt, tuck it into my jeans, and put a baseball hat on, you think I'm MAGA.
How do
Put my
you deal
veteran
with
hat
that?
on.
How do you? Yeah,
So surprisingly, it almost never comes up.
really?
It is literally. I say a lot that even my transgender friends are broke. Even my rural friends are broke. And so in the end, the biggest thing people are worried about right now is the kids can't afford to live. They can't afford to live. But number two is I come from a very simple place. Leave people the hell alone. I just, it's
Yes.
for me, it's very simple. Just leave people alone. It's not your business. Leave them alone. Look, and I tell stories. I won't tell the name, but there's a gentleman who lives in my district. His child is transgender and very young, and he's been a great advocate for the community. And he was on my show, so it's public. And he told me that they live near the city of St. Louis, just actually in my district, at the edge of my district. And he told me that they keep go bags in their car in case the law changes quickly or the state comes after their kid and them.
Jesus Christ.
Now, their go bag isn't to go to Canada. For those who aren't familiar, a go bag is typically if you work overseas like Brian and I did, or you
Yeah.
work in an embassy, you keep a bag like your passport's in there, your safe, your key documents, birth certificates, food, change of
Travel
clothes, underwear,
cash, money,
travel cash, right? Literally cash,
toothbrush.
right? Everything you need if you got to grab and go. And that, if you work in an embassy, in the embassy, you get an immediate evac, or it's all they let you take. But their go bag isn't to go to Canada, Brian. It's not go to Mexico. It's to go to Illinois. 15 miles, okay, or 5 miles across the board. And I say a lot, a woman in Missouri, because of the laws, the restriction on healthcare, the restrictions on abortion, a woman in Missouri has different rights than a woman in Illinois on the other side
Yes.
of the Mississippi River. And it's 2026. And I tell people that, so do you think about that? Do you think about the fact that you've made different people in our society less? You've made them have less rights, to have less. And if your whole thing is about freedom and letting people live as they want, and you don't want me telling how you raise your kids, for example, the push to have vouchers, they can go to private schools,
Yeah.
Christian schools. If you don't want me jamming my public schools down your throat, then you don't get to jam your Christian nationalism or your beliefs down somebody else's throat. So it's a simple thing. Just leave people alone. There's no agenda. We're not trying to make you gay. It is just people who want to be left alone. And it's
What's
the
the
same way with our
response to that?
unions. When I talk to unions, I ask the unions, what do you want? Fred, listen. I want you to listen when I pick up the phone. And we really want to be left alone. Don't screw with our agreements. Don't get rid of our collective bargaining agreements. Just let us live and make a living and do what we need to do to live. And a lot of my stuff, isn't that what freedom is about? And so consistently as I go about the district, it is what I told you earlier. People are worried about the future of their kids. They're worried about the economy. Those issues don't come up. And I just tell them, just leave people alone. I'm shocked. I was worried about running for Congress. I do have pretty liberal views. I'm not a conservative by any measure. But in the end, the moment we face right now is people want a fighter. It wants somebody who's going to fight, who's going to stand up to big power. It was interesting in our poll. The number one thing was affordability, far and away. Affordability, affordable healthcare, affordable food, everything was affordability. God, we're talking ridiculous numbers. But you know what's number two? They want someone to go to Washington who's going to fight the billionaires and the corporations for the little guy, for working people. And
When have
that's
we
that's
had
the
that
thing.
recently?
We haven't. And that's not, I'm not a socialist by any measure. It's like I
Well,
just
wait
want
a
to
minute,
fight
stop.
for
See,
people,
that word to me, it's like when
Right.
Donald Trump throws around the word
Communist.
communist. I'm going, and here, this scared me, Fred. I was talking to a reporter, and he goes, "Oh, he's bringing back the Red Scare of Ronald Reagan when he was talking about Sandinistas being a." I go, "No, Red Scare is a reference to Joe McCarthy
Joe
in the
McCarthy.
50s."
Right.
And he goes, "What are you talking about?" I'm going, "You're a fucking reporter, and you don't know what the Red Scare was."
Right. It's
I mean,
because it
it's
was
like
fake. Yeah, exactly. It was fake. It was a way to scare people. We were actually fighting communists at one point, which is weird. But no, this is
yeah.
really, it's ridiculous. And look, I'm
But
not in
my
New
point,
York. I'm go ahead.
well, let me. My point was okay. So the label socialism, that one pisses me off too. Look, like you, I consider myself progressive. I don't mind giving shit to anybody. I don't give a shit guy. So I'll get, I may love you to death, but I'm going to give you shit because that's what I'm here for. That's what they
It's
pay
the
me for.
job.
Yeah, that's the job. So here we go. Every time someone says socialist, I ask them to define it because Social Security. What is Social Security? What is a public school? What is a paved road? What is a fire department? What is a police department? What the hell is our military? All of
The
that.
military, you got to it. I was waiting to jump in. The military is we joke the military is the most socialist organization on earth. Everybody gets paid the same. You live in the same housing no matter who you are. It's like it's like, oh, it's a meritocracy. People, oh, it's a meritocracy. No, it's a socialist state. You know.
So, I
you
mean,
know.
how do you deal with it? Because I find that people don't, I always ask for definition of terms because I don't know what they're specific. It's a buzzword. It's something to trigger you. It's an emotional trigger. And I just ask them to define what the hell are you really upset about? What do you think's happening?
Right.
And then
And
I
and
never get a clear answer.
I've had very few. I'm used to MAGA coming out. I ran the Lincoln Project. I've been getting taught. I've been getting hit for years. What I laugh about is like, okay, one, look at me. Oh yeah, Army officer for 22 years. I went to Harvard. I admit that, but I also was a
Oh,
CEO
sure.
for
I
10
see you
years.
went to Harvard.
Hello, no, I had to get it in. The H bomb, and went this whole interview. I didn't mention it. I mean, come on. and but no, I do. I was a CEO for 10 years. I mean, I'm the opposite of what you're talking about. I am a capitalist, but the fact is,
Yeah.
we have a system that's not working for a lot of people. We have a K-shaped economy. Brian, I used to own Peachtree, and the thing you learn when you own peach trees is you have to trim them aggressively almost every year, because if you don't trim your peach trees, they get lanky, they get long. And what happens? And I remember distinctly one year we were busy, and I was in my usual crazy, and the peach tree got real gangly, and we had really big fruit that year. We had a great year for fruit. And what happens with the peach tree when the fruit gets really big on a gangly tree? It collapses. The branches collapse and hit the ground, right? That's
Yeah.
a K-shaped economy. And
Yeah.
right now the K is growing so big, there's going to come a point when that upside of that gangly K-shaped economy is going to crash, be it the AI boom finally collapsing, be it the crypto scheme finally collapsing for what it is, which is fake. Eventually that K-shaped economy collapse. But the problem I have is the top's going to land on the bottom,
Yeah.
right? And the people are going to pay the ones who are going to get crushed, really crushed, are the people at the bottom of the K. And right now, that's 67% of Americans. 67%. PNC did a bank.
Wait a minute.
PNC Bank.
I'll give you one. All
Yeah.
right. So Venezuela goes down, right, in an earthquake.
Mm-hmm.
UNICEF, all these other organizations are asking you to give just $20 so they can raise 200 million to save Venezuela. I gladly give my 20. Now, the average median income for an American family is like 85,000. All right, so basically, if you go up a little bit to 100,000, 0.02% of your annual salary or your annual income is $20 to raise $200 million. Do you know what 0.02%, what 200 million is 0.02% of? A trillion. So basically, dipshit Magoofi over here, who runs Tesla, the Doge guy with the chainsaw on the fucking stage, for the equivalent of $20 that you and I would give could bail out an entire country. And people think that these billionaires are there for them.
Right.
Man, I don't get it. I
The
just don't
top
get it.
the top 10% accounts for 49% of all consumer spending. The top 20% accounts for 58% of all consumer spending at the moment. We have an economy being driven by the top 20%. 85% of all stocks and assets are owned by that same 20%.
Yeah.
Okay. So here we are in a situation where if you're a stock owner, an asset owner of size, not a 401k, don't give me that bullshit. I don't want to
Yeah, that
hear,
401k.
oh, my
Yeah.
401ks are doing great. Your 401k is worth $100,000. They're worth hundreds of millions. So don't give me that crap. Working people are falling further and further behind. Wages are flat. Inflation's eating up the wage gains we have. Kids can't afford to live. We had the highest number of people under 32 living at home with their families, their parents,
That
since
was
the
what
pandemic.
that's
Right? I mean,
that's
it's just
for the first time, succeeding generations will not do as well as the preceding generation.
right. And we're all whistling through it. Congress and my own party are kind of whistling through it like it's not. It is happening. And if you want to
Yes.
go with what happened in New York, look, the people that got elected are socialists. Great, good for them. That's not why they got elected. Okay, they got elected because they're not part of the status quo. They have said very clearly something has got to break, and I'm willing to break things, and that's what people want. And I'm out here in Missouri.
Of
I'm
course,
going to
that's
say,
what
look,
Trump said too, but
but we actually, well, that's the other part. And let's also talk about our party. What
yeah.
our party is going to do when they get power is they're afraid of power. This is the part that drives me crazy about our party. Mr. Biden had power and they're afraid to use it. They're afraid. Well, don't forget, Fred, he had Kristen Sinema and Joe. Fuck that. Use your power. Okay. And we need to do big things fast. People come to me all the time. They say, well, Fred, I want Medicare for all. Great. That's a great goal. How are you going to get there from here? And then you get the how many. Like, the problem I've got is that right now there's people in my district, in rural Missouri especially, who don't have health care.
Yes.
That is a crisis. That's a crisis. That's death waiting to happen. And 4 years from now ain't going to do it. 5 years from now ain't going to do it. A study, a committee, a commission isn't going to get that poor mama help with her birth, with her cancer, with her kids' health. We got to do shit fast now.
And you know what?
And so we need people to go, right.
This Congress, by the way, these are my two big rants. A, the presidential PEP secretary left for an 8-week paid vacation maternity leave that millions of other Americans cannot get. And when she came back, she bitched about how her generation is spoon fed. And she's spoon fed. It drove me nuts. How about Congress, who broke for Christmas vacation this year without picking up affordable health care for all of us while they get free health care for life?
Right. There's just a disconnect from the governed
You're
and the
going to
governed.
change that, brother?
I'll try. I'll be a freshman, but I am a grumpy son of a bitch. I just, I'm not going, again, I've promised look, the first thing we're going to do, what's interesting to me is you're talking about talking to the district. So one of the things I do is I talk to elected officials. And of course, I don't know if you know, but Missouri, local officials are nonpartisan races,
Yes.
Officially. But,
officially, but
so, but I say to them, I've talked to all the mayors and I say, hey, and they'll see my card says Democrat big letters and they'll frown at me. And I'm like, look, I'm not asking you to endorse me. I know you're not partisan. I'm just saying, if you had the ability to pick up the phone and your member of Congress actually answered it, which she does not do right now, what would you ask for? And the answers are, I've got a flood control problem. There's a reason there's a river on see the river on my logo. There's 5 rivers that go through my district: Mississippi,
Merrimack?
Missouri, Merrimack, Gasconade, and Burbus. If we get rain like that, what's that?
On all those.
There you go. Right. Yeah. If you're Missouri and them.
Yeah.
There you go. And so if we get rains like Kerrville, Texas, people are going to die. Yeah. And I worry about that. And I worry about the idea that we're not taking it seriously enough. And so I talk about these things and he said, and so Fred, I got this road that ends in the next city because it would take federal dollars to break through that famous Missouri limestone. We're famous for it. People don't realize we used to be an ocean. Missouri's got we're famous for our limestone and our sandstone. And so it's like, it takes federal dollars. And so that's where I approach it. I'm running to represent the people of Missouri's 2nd District because they haven't had effective representation in a long time.
Do MAGA
Miss Wagner represent, I'm sorry?
Do MAGA members listen to you?
Yeah. Look, I run into MAGA all the time. They're shocked I'm a Democrat, but we always agree on the same thing. I love this. One of my favorite stories is very early in the campaign. I went to a barbecue at a local restaurant, uh, Republican, and it was a chicken wing. No, it was a barbecue contest for veterans, and I stood out obviously, and guy, I come into his booth and he says, "You're running for Congress?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Oh wow, who against?" And Amway goes, "Oh my God, she's useless. She doesn't do anything for it. No, the banks love her. She's worth $27 million now." Yeah, man. Oh God, you're a Republican, right? I said, "No, I'm a Democrat." He goes, "Oh man, I can't vote for a Democrat." I said, and he gave me some excuses why. And I said, "Look, man, I get it. I respect that. But here's the thing: we both agree that Ann Wagner sucks." And she's not doing her job. So here's what I want you to do. When you go in the booth in November, it's me versus her. Just vote for me. And if I suck at the job, you can fire me in 2 years. And he busted out laughing. I said, "It's the worst job in America. I got to reapply every 2 years." And he busted out and he was laughing. He goes, "That's a really good point." I said, "Yeah, I mean, how much damage you got to do in 2 years?" And he laughed. He goes, "That's kind of a good point." And it is a good point. I mean, look, we know she doesn't do anything. She doesn't answer emails. She doesn't answer phone calls. She doesn't listen. She listens to the bank. She's the banker's best friend in Washington. She has raised all of her money for the banking and financial services industry. She has done all their bidding. She's undermined regular people. She's increased her net worth, quadrupled her net worth in Congress. At some point, we just got to say, what enough is enough.
Well, they
Let's
all
have
go native.
some people wants to work for us. And I just hope I go to Washington and I bring money home and I bring good things home. And we have a 100-day plan that we're building that starts on November 5th. And we're going to convene local leaders, all of them. This may as well come in a big ass hotel room. I'll spend the money. Hopefully I have money left over. And we'll rent a ballroom and we're going to invite these local officials. Say, all right, what's your wish list? What do we need? What do you guys agree on that Washington could help with? Is it the Greenway that we cross? Is it fixing old Route 66? Is it building daycare centers that you can't afford? Is it flood control? Is it highway fund? What do you need in this district? Infrastructure. Is it grants from the EPA? Because we have one county, beautiful Franklin County, that has at least 2 illegal dumps. And the EPA is like, not my problem. The local government is like, not my problem. The state's like, I got nothing. I mean, but meanwhile, it's leaching into the Merrimack River.
Yeah.
And it's poisoning our water. Somebody's got to take responsibility. Well, if I go to Washington, D.C., I don't know.
When I was in college, I worked in the governor's office as an intern briefly in Jeff City. And they had a big map on the wall about all the poison, from
Yeah.
Remember Times Beach? I go back to
right.
that.
I hike there now. They fixed it allegedly.
Yeah, it's on. Well, all right. So that brings me to the last time I really saw Congress working in a bipartisan manner together was what? The infrastructure bill, the $1 trillion infrastructure bill. We've had nothing like that since. No bipartisanship. So how would you reach across the aisle if you're elected?
I was asked that because obviously my senators are Josh Hawley and Eric Schmidt, who I actually don't see eye to eye on. It's going to shock you, but I actually don't see eye to eye with those gentlemen. However, they're my senators. I mean, having said that, they're my senators. And for what it's worth, Hawley has brought home money. Hawley has done good things. The RICO thing, people don't realize that Missouri was part of the Manhattan Project, and they literally dumped barrels of radioactive waste into a creek. And we've got a cancer problem here. So he got a law passed, a fund to help fund. So I told one of your colleagues in journalism asked me that question. I said, here, again, my job is to work for the people of Missouri too, period. And if Josh Hawley brings me a good idea, or I go to him and we can work together, I'm going to need his help. And so we're going to have to. Look, I'm as partisan as they come. Circling back, I ran the Lincoln Project. I'm a partisan. Having said that, I need to be representative. The title is the job, representative.
You ran the Lincoln
Project. And I need to represent the people of Missouri's 2nd district, and that will mean I have to work with Republicans probably. But in the end, the goal is to help people. If I help people, I get to keep my job. Yeah. If I help people, I get to sleep at night. And I'm doing this because service has been my life. Okay, I went in the Army at 17. I volunteered to come back in after 9/11. I was a reservist. I went back active duty, did 3 more combat tours. When COVID hit New York, I drove up to New York and ran a COVID field hospital as the administrative chief of staff, staffed by veterans. I helped the Afghan evac refugees coming to St. Louis. I mean, when the moment calls, I've always been proud to stand up and say, send me. And that's what I'm doing now is we just need somebody in this district to go, I'm here, I'm listening. what do we need to make this a better place? Because I'm watching my home, this beautiful, believe me, you've lived here. It
Yeah,
truly is a beautiful place. It's so underrated
I
and
love Missouri.
underexpected. It's unexpectedly wonderful with wonderful, decent people who just want to be left alone. They are rigidly independent people. And I believe in my heart, they just want somebody who's going to represent them with fairness and equity and decency and finally courage. And I think, the big things we're facing right now are the cost, it's the corruption, and it's the chaos. And the solution to those three C's is other one is courage. And I've never been afraid of a fight. I've never been afraid to do what I think is the right thing. And when people tell me I'm wrong, and I think that's what people are looking for right now. I really do. And I'm hoping
Well,
to be
that's a
that guy.
great way to end the broadcast. I'm
Yeah.
gonna let you plug whatever you want, my brother. What do you got? What do you want?
Wellman for MO. Look, we've got a great race. A lot of people are shocked. They look at Missouri, think you can't win it. I've got the numbers proving I can. I've got every union's come in to endorse us after sitting out the last two cycles. I've got elected officials. We have 13 members of Congress that have endorsed us, 3 senators. This is a real live campaign that's going to beat Ann Wagner in November. I just need help. Because people are overlooking us, we could always use your support financially, of course. It's wellman4mo.com, all spelled out. You can learn all about what I'm doing. You can see our endorsement. You can see what I stand for there. But the truth of the matter is, this could very easily be the 218th vote for the Democratic caucus. I'm going to go to Washington, D.C. and literally fight for working people. And that's my job. That's what the remit is. And that's what I hope to do. So I would love the support.
So
And of
where's the
course, you can follow us.
DCCC?
We are one of their 31 targeted races, but I am not in the red to blue program. I will withhold judgment. Here's what I told again, fiercely independent. I'm trying to be generous here. Yes,
Be honest.
the DCCC is in Washington. They're located just off the Capitol. Where they're located this race, I'm sure they're thinking about it. Look, I told again, rigid independence. I told my team, I made some very conscious decisions to begin this. One of the pillars of my campaign was I got to be me. I'm going to be me at the start. I'm going to be me at the end. That's number one. Number two, we're going to put this thing on our back and carry it ourselves. That we're going to have to do what we have to do to be independent. We're going to have to. No one's going to save us. There's not going to be anybody in a white hat riding into Missouri to save us. So we're going to build a campaign that will win on its own 2 feet, and that's going to be much harder because people in Missouri are burned out. Our donor class is burned out. They've tried and tried. So I've got a very hot race next door to me with Corey Bush and Wesley Bell running against each other in the city. So that's sucking up a lot of energy. So we always knew it was going to be hard, but I made a conscious decision to say, look, we're going to work with our unions. We're going to work with our advocates. We're going to work with our activist class. We're going to build a campaign that stands on its own 2 feet, and we will continue that fight on our own. So I'm looking forward to those people joining me after the primary. Obviously, it's a late primary. Our primary is August 4th. We're going to win the primary, and then I'm all the people who promised me they'd be in after the primary are going to get a call. So August 5th, if you're watching this and you told me to call you after the primary, you should be by your phone on August 5th because I'm calling you. I assure you, I've kept a list and I'm checking it twice. And I'm like Santa Claus. I'm coming, baby.
Go for it.
But in the end, we're going to win this thing on our own 2 feet. We're going to change the world. We're going to change the state. And another cool thing is we got data showing that when we win Missouri 2, we're going to flip 6 of the state house seats that are in my district possibly. That breaks the supermajority in Jefferson City as well. So we have the power to truly change my state right here in my beautiful district outside of St. Louis. So I'd love all the help I can get.
I think it's representative of the entire United States. You've got everything in that whole district. So with that said, I want to thank Fred. You got to load up when we get done, but I want to thank you for sticking around. This is Just Ask the Question. I am your host, Brian Karem. Thanks for joining us. We'll catch you next time.